So time will begin in 3, 2, 1, go.
All right. Good luck.
All right. So we're gonna see traces of a trick here. I can at least use time to explain some of the mechanics of this game. We are turning around right at the start because we need to unlock a vehicle. I turn around at the start. There's basically an Easter egg that if you go backwards on any given track and hit that like wall, you will basically end up triggering a mirror mode version of the track. Usually this doesn't achieve much besides make your race harder. But there is a reward you get for doing a race in mirror mode. We do this race in particular on mirror mode because it's just the shortest one on the run. It's 2 laps long. It also just happens to fit that this is also the first track in the run. What you're seeing me do before these drifts is you're seeing me downshift going into them. This will be a little bit more apparent as like the effects of it later in the run because of the car that we'll be using for the majority of the run, and if I can do it correctly, the entire rest of the run. I can also explain how drifts kind of work in this game. They play kind of like a mix of like the grip and drift cars from R4, where they kind of go inward like the grip cars, but kind of have like that sort of like soft rails that it kind of pushes you along that the drift cars in R4 do. How you can line up for your drifts, you basically can optimize your drifts as well by lining up your car to the race line of the track to get out of a drift earlier. How you can basically adjust that is you can basically hold a drift for as long as you need, so long as you make sure that the car is like the yaw of the car does not line back up with the track. That's a relatively okay start. It's just important that you win that track. With this, we unlock the caddy car. This is the car we are using for the entire rest of the run, ideally. For Mortis, I'm making this the pink. Look at those stats. We are going to have a fun time with this car. This car has no grip, the literal worst acceleration in the game, but also has the highest speed in the game. You're gonna see it here. I'm gonna start downshifting before I initiate almost any drift in this game now. Shit. That is not a good showing. You're gonna see it here that whenever I line back up on the track, the car is gonna kind of start slingshotting forward with speed. You can also use the drift in this game to kind of like bypass some like of the normal driving mechanics, such as catching air. So yes, you can drift a corner in midair. And basically we can kind of just like use the fact that the car kind of like lines up back on the race line to get around the grip stat, or the lack thereof of a grip stat, because usually what it is you usually have a terrible time trying to align the yaw of the car with the track. So as long as you just focus on like aligning with the racing line, you're chill. And you can use this to go well past the car's intended max speed. You will see a decay though, because again, with the car being not supposed to go that fast, it'll scale back down. So part of the challenge of the run is one, because the car's acceleration is so bad, minimizing your mistakes. And 2, trying to maintain that more than intended speed in order to finish tracks as fast as possible, which also means finding more and more places to drift boost in the middle of your run. Case in point, that is already a 7-second time save compared to the first lap where we had to get the speed. Another thing to note about the drifts in this game, it tries to restore you to the speed that you started the drift at. Shit. Yeah, if anything happens to you, you kind of just get bodied in terms of speed. How the game basically tries to give you your speed back from a drift is it stores it based on the revs that are on your tachometer. So if you notice, anytime that I go down to like start a drift boost, I always drop to one where it puts the tachometer in the red, because it tries to put the revs back to what it was when you initiated the drift. So upshifting in the drift, one, does not penalize you in terms of speed, and two, it puts you at what the tachometer like would correlate to in terms of speed once you line back up on the track, even if the gear that you're in does not match. That's how you can use the car to go past its more than its intended speed. So a majority of the run is also figuring out like the best times that you can actually basically initiate. It's called a drift boost because it's very straightforward. You use the drifts to increase your speed. So pretty much almost any corner that I can realistically get the inputs in to do it, I will be drift boosting. This drift, I was saying kind of like operated you like on like a soft like rail system almost. This is the course where you'll see like the rails of the track kind of just hard carry you. Like if you're about to hit a wall, it will pull you back on the rail. On any of the Renegade courses. So we can use this to kind of like cheese this course a little bit. Some people say it makes the course feel harder to them. I think it makes the course feel easier for me. Because you can do shit like that where you basically like almost are like running into that hairpin turn and just pull yourself out of it. There's basically a balance that you can hit of like what gear you're at to actually get a lot of speed from a drift boost versus the speed decay that you have from like obviously running your car like 3 gears down. 4 is like minimal speed loss, but not much speed gain. Whereas if you're shifting down to gear 3, it's a little bit more speed loss, but you get like a lot more speed gain at higher speeds. In certain niche scenarios, if you need to like get up to speed, you can try to shift down to an even lower gear, but sometimes if you're not going like the speed that the game would like for that gear to initiate a drift, it won't give you the drift. But yeah, you can basically kind of use the drift on some tracks to kind of also cheese some really tight cornering sections like what I'm doing here. Alright, that's a very relatively solid stage 1. I did take some time to kind of explain the beginning of the run, so it's not the fastest one I've ever had, but that's fine. And then saving the game is slow. How each stage works in this game is each stage is split into 3 courses. A course that's based from the original Ridge Racer, called like the Ridge Racer courses, that's on Seaside Route. I think it's like 785 or something like that. Or it might be 685. These are the tracks that were actually shown originally in the original Ridge Racer, plus the arcade games. There's a course from Revolution, which is from, like, it's the main course in Ridge Racer Revolution that you race around. And the new one introduced in this game is the Renegade courses. So it's actually kind of also a little bit of a love letter to like the earlier Ridge Racer games, because it's taking some of their more iconic tracks from like the earlier entries. This is gonna be like a case of this course is gonna be a case of where you need to align the car on the like the race line is obvious, to where you can actually go like insanely quick. And this is where you can kind of like see like that sort of slingshot effect that I was talking about. And I'm going well past the intended speed of this car. As you get into the later stages as well, your cars will also go up a speed class as well. There's S class, R class, X class, and Z class. Z for you Brits and Aussies. I guess and Canadians too. My profile pick's a different one from Discord. Yeah, I have edited my profile in Fugi at one point. But yeah, since we're going well past the intended speed, we're not supposed to be lapping the cars this fast. Alright, that was a little bit of a slow lap 3, but that's fine. Commentating and playing this game can be very hard. But we're not at any point right now where we can realistically lose a race, so I'm perfectly fine to kind of like explain the basics of the run while I do this. This is going to be one of the first courses where if you play it well, it is evident how fast this trick is. Look at the minimap there. That is a lot of corners. And as we know in this game, corners can be free real estate for speed. Other little things to note, walls aren't as big of a penalty in this game compared to how they are in other games like Ridge Racer Type 4. I'm going to probably draw comparisons to that one a lot, because that's probably the one I played second most compared to anything else. Whereas in this game, running into cars is what kills your speed a lot. Ideally, I've kind of done enough of this track. What I consider to be a good first lap in this track is if you end up catching first before the first lap is over, and it's a sub-minute lap. Even with walking into that car and losing most of my drift boosted speed, yeah, this is a really good first lap. I also have my own splits running as well, just so I kind of know like how I'm doing pace-wise, because, like I said, I'm testing an insanely hard route in this run that I've been practicing for, and if I get it, I world record. There is some other things I can kind of talk about here. Oh. Well, I messed up my gear shifting and did not actually start the drift in time. This is also, because of the low acceleration of the car, probably the one that's got the most penalty to just shift at all. Your car borderline stalls out every time you shift a gear. So doing too many, like, right after each other, and while you're not in a drift, actually really does penalize you. That's why it's, like, super important that you make sure you do your upshifts in the drift. Like, so far the game seems pretty chill, and later when we get into like the harder parts of the run, you'll see where it becomes the Ridge Racer speedrun that hates you. I mean, you can kind of already see it with like, yeah, as you can see here, like you run into a car, it's like very easy to just lose all your speed. And with this car having not that great of a handling and no grip at all, it's very hard to control your car on track sometimes. Oops. Well, this one's not gonna be a sub-minute lap. I can already tell you that for sure. Pretty much, as long as you don't get hit to below like 80 miles an hour in this car, you can usually recover most of your speed with the drift boost. It's not an insane death sentence, but this is a car that genuinely does have one of the biggest penalties for just messing up anything. It is not uncommon to basically lose like 10 seconds or more off of getting like hit down and out of gear. But yeah, doing a drift boost right at the start, for example, like once the car hits like that 80 miles an hour in gear 4, it's like exactly what you can do to like restore your speed or to like bypass the rest of the car's terrible acceleration. Alright, this is gonna be where you can see like the rails of the track kind of get really stupid in your favor. I'm basically like almost running into the hairpin walls. .51's a pretty solid lap time there. I did have a bit of a rough time with traffic. Yeah, if you're about to hit a wall, you can basically use that to kind of like recover most of your speed as well, because you're not going to sit there hugging the wall and you drift. Depending on how you also drift in these turns, you can actually line back up with the racing line as you're getting out of the hairpin to where, like, you can kind of just, like, get a really sharp turn out of nowhere. Alright, this is going to be about a sub 50. Yeah. Just barely, though. Because of how fast you're going, dodging traffic does tend to still be a challenge in this game. Because, at least in earlier stages, lapped traffic can be a problem. Alright, and then it's not usually worth it to drift boost on straightaways unless you need to get up to speed. That's an example of what I was talking about there, where you can actually, the race line pull you get pulled right back onto the race line out of the hairpin. Oh. There's also situations like that can happen where if you basically do all the right stuff to start a drift, but are still on the racing line, it might actually just straight up not take your drift because how the drift ends is by realigning with the racing line. So what happens if you initiate a drift right on the racing line? There's a lot of little things that can happen that can make you lose time, and it's one of those where it's just like, it like really rewards you for like feeling the mechanics. Alright, coming up is one of my weaker tracks. Losing this track is not really a question right now, but it will be later. Alright. We're going to take advantage of the speed that we have going into this corner and how the drift works, basically, and that drift super early to get a lot of speed out of it. And then, welcome to narrow corridor hell. This also is the introduction of one of the worst things that can happen to you when you're racing, is getting air. There's certain points in this game where if you have enough speed and you hit like an inclined surface, your car will basically jump. It is very annoying because it's actually a huge source of speed loss, and you're kind of locked in the direction of where you're going. So you don't really want that to happen in, for example, such precise sections as the construction zone here. So in certain spots where basically just going fast along that line will give you air. Oops. That was not a good one there. Another example of like making any mistake in this car can make you lose significant speed is right there. Yeah, right here, you basically want to try to like initiate a drift around the point that gives you air. Even with as much as I've practiced this track, there's still plenty of ways for me to lose time on them, so not really satisfied with how the stage 3 is going so far for me, but like it's in the middle of a run, so I really can't do anything else about it besides just play the rest of it well. Yeah, we're going well past our intended max speed. You can also just kind of take your time on some turns to actually try to align with the racing line later if you're not confident of your ability to actually race it cleanly. I kind of intentionally bonked those walls there just so I didn't get air there. It was going way too fast for me to process. And that is the fastest lap I've ever gotten on that track, so I'm actually pretty happy with that. If I did one thing right, it was that. Yeah, the course layouts get a lot more, like, precise, sometimes narrow, and very tricky on later difficulties because there's also the extra speed added in. This is going to be a course where getting enough speed to catch air is something you have to plan around. That's a great example right there. I did the thing where I aligned back on the racing line. So sometimes what you can do on some of these turns is to basically, like I said, align yourself with like a future part of the track in order to basically like kind of not get some really awkward turn situations. Or basically, if like you find like the section too hard to race through, you can use basically the zero grip on this car to actually kind of like adjust yourself in the right direction once you finish the turn. That's the reason why I held the drift out there, is because there's 2 jumps on turns that are about as evil as you think they are. Remember, this is the Ridge Racer speedrun that hates you. We're still not at any point where we can realistically lose a race, which is why I'm not too worried about like driving like super bad right now, and kind of using this as a chance to kind of like explain stuff. Because again, every single time you're seeing me like shift down a gear, that's an input on the controller that I'm also having to do in like the time frame that it takes to basically like initiate the drift, which is like sometimes just like maybe a second. Alright, I'm going to intentionally take a little bit of time to actually readjust my line there. Basically what I try to do is either I try to like hit a wall like right at the slope to kind of like keep me on the ground, or try to be in a drift when these jumps happen. Because if you're in a drift when the jump happens, it pulls you along the line in midair. This and its reverse is probably my personal worst course in the game, in terms of my own abilities, but surprisingly they're very lenient. Oops. Alright, that was not very clean at all, but like... I don't know, man. This is kind of the warm-up part of the run anyway. Yeah, once we finish out the expert stages, it kind of goes into the next part of the run, which is basically going to be like, the game calls them extra courses. It's the reverse versions of the courses. It basically is like the older tracks, like on their same speed class, but with smarter AI. With smarter AI, and then the AI has like a faster base speed. Because if you notice, some cars are getting phased out now. Alright, that was not a very clean first section, but most of these tracks, the hardest lap is going to be the first. Because you have to spend time getting up to speed, and the AI likes to clump together if you give them any chance to. And with a wide hitbox of this car, you can see how kind of a lot of that goes. It is very easy to get comboed in this game. Yeah, that wasn't too clean of a lap one, but I've always had trouble getting through the traffic on this first lap on this specific track. Alright. Okay, we're going well over 200. Actually, an example there of the track being on rails being able to save you from like a bad drift. I'm gonna race this part normally this time just to try to like preserve some speed. You can see where having like a lot of extra speed can really hurt you there. Like, yeah, and when you're playing this track, don't be afraid to basically abuse the fact that this track is on rails. Alright, this is going to be a relatively okay Renegade Expert. I can't complain too much about it. That being said, if you do find the section going at like a certain speed too difficult, you can actually just basically like initiate and like draw out a drift in order to like just kind of cheese the section, because again, it's kind of like soft on rails. Alright, this was not a great Renegade Expert, but that's fine. We're kind of just through in like the explanatory part of the run. Now we get about a 2-minute break. Once you complete the first set of courses, it gives you a set of credits that last about 2 minutes. Once you complete the second set of courses, you get another set of credits that last about 2 minutes. It's basically just saying like, congrats for you, you did this set of Grand Prix. So we can use this as a chance to kind of like just get up, use the bathroom, stretch, drink some water. I don't know. It's a nice little moment to breathe, depending on where you're at in the run. I'm using it as a chance to get some water myself. Something cool you can see here is that the scene of the credits actually changed depending on which course is the last one you actually won before unlocking the credits. Something I always liked as a kid, though, when it came to this game, is seeing the cars in spots normally you can't reach. So, like the diner here. It's got, like, no relevance to the run or anything like that, but it's neat. So yeah, once we see special thanks start popping up, that means we're gonna be ready to kind of like get back into this. Because once the special thanks finish, then you got like John Frost, the voice of the announcer in this game, just being like, "Great work! You are Ridge Racer champion." But am I actually? Alright, so now that we're done with that, we can start going into the reverse stages. And believe it or not, despite being reverse versions of each of the courses, there are somewhat significant differences. There are somewhat significant differences to where you're going to drift boost in some of these spots. Some new spots kind of open up for you, like right here. And then some other ones, like some spots are just not feasible in like the normal way that you would run the race. Oops. I did the thing again where I lined back up the racing line in my drift. Yeah, so long as you actually like kind of keep as long as you shift up in your drift, like when you're initiating the drift boost, you can actually use it even like if you hit a wall mid-drift to basically recover lost speed. But yeah, we're no longer lapping everybody on lap 1. Or, we're not lapping everybody, but we're no longer catching first on lap 1. So these races are going to start taking a little bit more brain power. And as we get further in the run, they're going to start taking a lot of bit more brain power. Basically what I'm doing to kind of like initiate my drift sooner is I'm kind of compensating for like the angle of the turn while like kind of pulling back once I initiate the drift. That should be at 40. It's basically compensating for the fact that like I'm trying to adjust back onto what the racing line out of the turn is. Ow, my neck. Felt my neck pop when I was like kind of like stretching it a little bit. For example, you have to be a little bit more careful with how you do your drift boost here when it's in reverse. There's some spots. This is actually going to be a great example. Is you can actually potentially lean out. You can squeeze out like 2 drifts there on that corner. That spot's going to give you air now. Like, there's a couple of minute changes that do kind of change the way that this track is ran. Case in point, this becomes the most awkward turn in the track now. There we go. 191 on S class is actually really good. Alright, I'm fine hitting the corner there. Not there, though. Alright, I'm gonna start locking in towards, like, the back half of this. The reverse of this actually tends to be my best set of courses. Which is why I'm completely jobbing it right now. Three. Okay, still set a new record on the last lap though. The drift trick has Trackmania bug slide vibes to it. I actually have never watched Trackmania. I've been told that, like, I would like it though, given some mechanical similarities to this. This is gonna be like the one spot where doing your drift boost on a straightaway is just kind of mandatory. As a result of how long it takes to get up to speed, this is probably like the set of courses, the Renegade like reverse courses, where it is most easy to just get like just screwed by traffic. So, as long as you're just careful when you initiate that, then you should be smooth for the rest of it. And yet again, don't be afraid to abuse the fact that this track is on rails in order to do what you need to do. Oops. I got a little greedy there. There's certain corners where it's like, even if it's like barely any like bit of a corner, I still try to drift boost through them, because that method usually tends to give you at least more leeway to adjust to the racing line. That wasn't so hot. But again, we can make up the speed pretty easily. Not much else to say here. Oops. I was trying to slide between him and the wall to actually get through and get a 43 lap. It didn't work. Alright. We're at the point now that the route has diverged. Usually I would go and unlock White Angel from that set. The car unlocks that I use are basically the ones that I'm most comfortable with because I've played the skins since I was a kid. But, if you can win every race with the caddy car, which much easier said than done, playing the caddy the whole way is actually the most optimal way to do that. To put into perspective the stakes of that, though, it has never been done on NTSC. I believe it's Fex has a run on PAL emulator that has done it. And as it currently stands, I am playing on N64. So, if I, like I said, if I do actually run this car the entire way, I will have done a first. My drift boosts feel like they are getting better, though, as the run is progressing. And yeah, so long as you don't like fully eat shit in like a drift, you can actually use it pretty much to like, even like small penalties from like hitting a wall isn't actually so bad. Because also you get more speed back depending on how few amount of seconds you are in the drift. So, like, the optimal thing to do on some of them is basically initiate your drift late as possible and realign as quick as possible. It becomes as input intensive as you think to do that, though. And we'll see it. Pretty much look at any turn and watch the gear number on the tachometer, and you'll be able to see, like, just how fast this is. And it's very easy to trip up on your inputs, like you saw earlier. Because you can shift up before you actually even initiate the drift, and that kills your speed. Alright, I'm going to take my time to actually realign on the line. But yeah, like right there, you can use that to do a couple drift boosts back to back to basically break 200. You can use it right there to actually get back up to speed. And we can use that to also kind of just cheat out this turn. That is a turn where I'm fine hitting the corner. That turn becomes a whole lot harder to do on the reverse. You want to initiate a drift kind of early there so you don't catch air. And if you do catch air right there, then you'll be pulled along the racing line. There we go. That was actually pretty clean. This is a track where I'm kind of locking in. Because it's one of the coolest tracks to look at when done right. I hit the corner. I can tell I'm getting a little bit nervous with this run, though, because my hands are getting sweaty. I'm feeling my fingers slide off the thumbstick. I will take a sub-minute every lap, though. Alright, we're starting to get to the point now where any race can kill an actual, like, viable run. Starting now, if you get a bad enough traffic pattern on lap 1, you can actually make it to where it's borderline impossible to win the race. So this is going to be the point in the run where navigating traffic clean actually begins to matter a lot. Because we're at the point in the run that, like, the caddy car, like how it normally plays casually, can and should be outstatted. Like, what's giving us any sort of, like, viability now with this vehicle is unintended mechanics. So basically as the odds get more and more stacked against us, the more and more it's going to demand perfection. Like I said, we're no longer just catching first on lap 1. Now, I want to basically kind of lock in on, like, some of these. At this point now is where I kind of stop, like, fishing for drift boosts on, like, every single, like, slight corner and focus on just the ones that I know that I can clear and get a drift boost off of. That's a pretty good lap, too. Keeping your drift boost speed up as much as you can, though, is absolutely paramount, though, because you can see on that straightaway at the start of the lap, you can see our speed decay back to our normal intended max speed. This car just does not have enough engine power to actually maintain the top speed that the game says we have. I kind of use it in here to make sure that, like... Okay, that's just me trying to get back up to speed more. Shit, I thought I was still in a drift. That's fine. I think even with that, this is still the best stage 5 I've ever had. The rest of it felt really good. But like I was saying, though, this is the point where the run starts scaling like crazy.
3, 2, 1, go!
Here's when I'm gonna start locking in. It is imperative that I drive this course well enough that I sub-minute or get very close to it every lap. That's fine. I can pass on the inside here. Shit. This specific course is probably the biggest non-stage 7 run killer for me. That's fine. I'm perfectly fine with losing a little bit of speed in there because if you think this thing's hard to control on the forward version of the track, you ain't seen nothing. Luckily, you just don't get a jump in there. So I guess count your blessings there. I will take that. This course has a very slim margin for error. Not to mention, the last time I did runs of this, I did so bad on that course. I basically was on pace to finish 9th. So that's my own little personal demon out of the way. Every single one of these remaining courses is now one of the hardest tracks in the game. And we gotta win them all back to back. Because now you're basically doing that corner, which you could, as you tell, I already come in too hot on normally. On our class. So now that on my next class, you actually basically are almost guaranteed to hit that wall, so you better make sure you're in a drift. I'm going to want to start a drift here to basically kind of take that like jump momentum with me. Because otherwise it's very easy to just hit a wall in your jump. I'm going to do something a little greedy there, kind of delay my ending my drift. And also setting up drift boost in there. This course is probably one of the hardest to race, like, actually cleanly. But it's actually not that bad in terms of difficulty of actually winning the race. I think I've only ever lost a race here, like, twice. That's fine. I'm fine taking a little bit of a slower speed through here. Because it's very common for me to get, like, slowed to almost a stop in there if I'm not coming in a way that I'm prepared for. Right. I have never seen that happen. I've never hooked a wall so bad mid-drift that it, like, corrected, like, it altered my angle of the drift. Okay. Yeah, this tunnel is like the demon for me. There's like a lot of demons late in this run. Because again, the expected pace that you need to be at is so much higher. And like these courses demand so much precision on some of their turns that like sometimes you just hit walls. There comes a point in the run where it actually ends up being better to just break corners rather than trying to drift them. That is one where it makes total sense to actually just break corners in a regular car. Alright. Now it's time for... This is the one where traffic RNG at the start kind of matters. Like, really matters. If I don't get good traffic at the start, I am going to reset the race. And against my better judgment, I'm gonna try to build up enough drift boost to basically kind of make up for the speed of that. It at least broke up the traffic enough where I'm not passing like 5 in the span of like 4 seconds. At least I shouldn't be. I might still have to, though. I will not find out until the last lap how good or bad this traffic setup was. The answer is terrible. I don't know if I can win. I'm gonna try, though. Okay. Here's the problem. I doubt that this is actually possible to win. Somehow, holy shit. As bad as that lap 1 was, I lost like 10 to 15 seconds. Okay. Can we have a run to the hard part? I'm actually gonna use this as a chance to get up and use the bathroom. Alright, I am back in time. Like I said, this makes for a good chance to use the bathroom to like get up stretch or anything like that. The next two courses, let's just put it bluntly. Stage 7 is the hardest track in the game. It's not even close. Stage 7 and 8 can be broke up into... Stage 7 has easy traffic, but a brutal pace. Stage 8 has an easy pace, but a brutal traffic. So I'm actually going to probably go quiet for the next two races to try to focus.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Three, two, one, go! All right, this is gonna be a big change.
To put into perspective, each lap on this track is about 30 seconds long. I need to sub 30 by considerable distance on these next few laps to actually even have a chance to win. That is not a good omen if I'm passing on lap 4 there. That might be it. Alright, I'll give it one more go like this.
Three, two, one, go! All right, this is gonna be a big change.
That's not gonna do it. I have a couple attempts to work with this.
Three,
Because I actually got that far with the caddy car. Alright. That's one demon down, even though I had to reset on it. I technically still am on world record pace.
Three, two, one.
Fitting up the replay theme plays here. This is the chorus where, because of the traffic pattern on lap 1, I needed to greed out what speed I can from Drift Boost. This is the course where any singular fuck up, case in point, I got fucking brake checked there by the car that was like 3 positions ahead. Get ready on time, because time is going to be when the credits are visible. I'm gonna cross the line, it's gonna play like a frame or two of the replay, and it's gonna be a black screen, and then the credits are gonna be visible. Yes, dude. Alright. Time.
GG's. God damn.
So yes, that is a loss and a reset.